Hello, HNU. This is the Career Center here, bringing you a great podcast series called the Career Center Spotlight. The Career Center Spotlight is all about interviewing folks in different industries to give you a professional and firsthand view of what's going on in their professional industry so you can get some insight and intake into what's going on. As the semester and everything goes on, an academic year, we'll have different people from different industries who I will be interviewing and giving you some of the great insight into how they got to where they at, the education, journey that they took, if they took that journey, and then just some real, again, hands-on, first lived experience of what they're doing in the field. So I hope you love the podcast. Please, leave us a like, a comment at the end, and let us know how it go. And if you think that you have somebody or an industry that you would like to hear us interview, give us a holler here in the Career Center, Brennan 81. Let's get into our interview for this week. All right. Hello, Hawks. Welcome to another Career Spotlight podcast. And today we have a special guest in. We have Justin from Alameda County Probation. Hello, Justin.
Hey, what's going on?
Nothing much, man. Just trying to make it through the day. So thank you for taking this time and opportunity to share your wealth of knowledge and everything with our students. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from, where you went to school, and all of that fun stuff?
Yeah, definitely. So thank you for having me on. This is awesome because normally I talk to students in the classroom, and it's criminal justice classes. So being able to hit not just criminal justice majors and let them know what probation is and what we do and stuff like that is really awesome. Because I myself did not major in criminal justice. So I majored in communication. So I'm glad that you have this outlet here. So as you said, my name is Justin Eaglin. I'm a deputy probation officer with the Alameda County Probation Department. I've been with the probation department for about 5 years now. And I have my bachelor's degree in communications with a focus on interpersonal communication. So a lot of my coursework had to do with like conflict resolution, interpersonal and intercultural communication and things like that. So that's a little bit about me. I currently work in the PRCS unit, which is the AB 109 unit. So I'll talk about all that good. I'll explain all that
those
good
acronyms.
Stuff, all the acronyms that we have. But I really wanted to talk to your students about how I was feeling when I first got into the career.
Okay, yeah.
What I was doing before. What the hiring process was like, because a lot of people have those questions on their mind, like what to expect while I'm going through the hiring process. And then my first day on the job, that was very, very interesting. So I kind of want to talk about that.
Okay.
And then talk a little bit about what I do now.
Okay.
If that's cool.
Okay, yeah. So go into that little bit of piece, the piece you were talking about. What were you doing before? Did you always envision probation and all of that? Just that piece right there, and then we'll transition into everything else.
Yeah, definitely. So I was, like I said before, I went to Cal State East Bay. I was a college student. And like many of college students, junior and senior year, your parents start asking you, like, hey, what are you going to be doing? You're going to be getting that degree pretty soon. And have you thought about what you're going to do? And at the time, I was actually working at a locksmith shop in Hayward. And I also owned my own small business that stemmed off of a course that I took in college. I was working at the locksmith shop, owning the small business. The small business was like what we did was we brought at the time spoken word poetry and graffiti arts and all the underground kind of like Bay Area art forms were really like hot topic. And so the original basis of the class was putting that on film and creating a YouTube channel. And it just kind of spun into doing assemblies and writing workshops and things like that at local schools. And particularly like we had contracts with like Hayward Unified School District and stuff like that. So giving kids an outlet other than sports to kind of express themselves.
Definitely, the arts are needed.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm working at the locksmith shop, and I was in a management position, and everybody was at lunch. So I was covering the showroom, and somebody came in, and we sold safes there. And so this person comes in, and she's asking about safes, and I'm trying to make the sale.
Yes.
And so we start talking, and I guess she really took to me, and she started asking me like, oh, what do are you going to school? And so I explained to her, yeah, I'm going to school. I'm about to graduate. I have my major in communications. This is what I'm doing. And she was like, oh, I work in probation. And, we can really use, good, positive people in our department, fresh to come on and work with, our population.
Yeah.
So at the time, I never, ever thought I'd ever be working in law enforcement. I never pictured it. I didn't even know what probation was at the time. I just thought, okay, probation officers supervise bad kids. And I didn't know that we ran the juvenile hall. I didn't know that there was a whole adult side to it.
Okay.
And all that kind of stuff. So what happened with me was about 2 weeks later, my dad, parents have that conversation. He sat me down. He's like, okay, son, it's about that time. Like, what are you going to be doing? It's time to start really thinking about your future. And I had remembered the customer that came in, and I was like, you know what? Let me see what probation is. So I went on Alameda County's website, and I saw that it had just opened, Deputy Probation Officer 1. And I read, the requirements. You have to have a bachelor's degree. And it didn't specifically say it had to be in criminal justice. So I felt like I met the minimum qualifications, and I saw, what it paid and what the benefits were. And I was like, oh, this would be great. This would make everybody, happy. All my family, everybody, right?
It checks all the boxes.
Yeah, it checks all the boxes. So I applied. And once you apply, they have a deadline date, and if you meet the minimum qualifications, then they follow up with the email saying, hey, you met the minimum qualifications, and they give you a date and time for a test.
Okay.
So that's the next step in the process after you apply is a test. And I know
I heard that test can be a lot.
Yeah, and now we're jumping into what the hiring phase for me looked like. So that test. So when I tell you, I went to downtown Oakland, and that line for the test wrapped around the building, there had to be at least like 200 people there.
Oh, wow.
And here I am with my communications major degree, standing in line with all these people to take a test for a job in criminal justice. Yeah. And I actually ran into somebody that I knew from Cal State East Bay who majored in criminal justice. And she was like, oh, hey, what are you doing here? Whatever. So anyway, so I went in there, took the test. It was about a 2-hour test. They had a whole portion on like grammar, spelling, reading comprehension, and then they had a little bit of math, and then they had another portion on it was like situation based that did have to do with like law enforcement situations and things like that. So I did the test. I went home and I waited. Yeah. And I ended up getting a text message from the girl that I saw standing in line, and she was like, hey, did you get an email back? I got an email saying I didn't pass. And so I'm like, refresh on the email. And I didn't get anything. Yeah. So I was like, I wonder. And then like maybe a week later, boom, I got an email that said, congratulations, you passed the test. You're moving on to the next step, which was an oral interview. Okay. So now I'm like, okay, time to get my interview skills ready. So I went to the interview, and one thing, whether you're, looking to have a career in law enforcement or whatever, when you go to an interview, you definitely want to look sharp. And something that I always tell the classrooms that I speak to are these new ways that they do interviews and stuff now. The way that they want you to answer is in the STAR method. Yeah. So the STAR method, for those of the people that don't know, is situation, task, action, and results. So
we use that here in the center, and we share that with students.
So that's definitely like, it's real. So people at the college aren't lying to you. This is what you need to be ready for when you go into an interview. So I go into the interview room, and there's a big long table, and there's 3 people sitting across the table. And at a glance, I look at their names and titles, and I see like Deputy Chief of Juvenile Field Services, Deputy Chief Adult Field Services, and then there was somebody from HR there, and then another assistant chief or something like that. And at that point, it kicked in. I was like, oh, this is the real deal.
And was this like your first like big interview kind of like this? Like with multiple people and in this room? I mean, you described the table as being big and long, so you remember that table vividly.
Oh, I remember that table vividly. So I walked in, and this was the first, and this was actually the only panel interview for that round of hiring.
Oh, okay.
So I walked in, big table. I saw a piece of paper right in front of where I would be sitting, and it had the questions on it because everybody gets asked the same questions.
Okay.
So I had three administrators in the probation department, and then one HR specialist who was in the room as well to make sure that they answered, that they asked the right questions and all that kind of stuff. So I did my interview, and of course, you walk away from interviews and you think like, oh, I forgot to say this, I forgot to say that, and all that kind of stuff. So then the waiting began again, right? So a couple months went by, nothing, and then I got maybe 4 months later, I got a phone call from HR, and this was at a point where I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, like. Now I really need to find something else, and I'm starting to apply to different places. I'm looking at Apple. I'm looking at all these different places to apply. And then I got the phone call from HR, and she was like, hey, are you still interested in the position? And I was like, absolutely, I'm still interested in the position. She was like, okay. So I'm going to send you this background packet, and you have to fill it out and submit it to this background agency who's going to. So they sent me this background packet. It was like 50 pages long.
Oh, wow.
And they want to know everything about anything, everywhere you've lived, your past relationships. If you have tattoos, what do those tattoos mean?
Really?
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. So it's very important if you're going to be applying for law enforcement agencies that, number one, your answers are consistent across the board. So if you apply for probation and then you apply for the sheriff's department and then Oakland Police Department, if you get to the position where you're in the background process, they all contact each other because they want to know what agencies have you applied for in the past and how far did you get. Okay. That's another section of the big background packet that they want to know. So consistency is key. And statistically, they say that only 1 in 4 people pass backgrounds.
Wow.
Because of some type of discrepancy. So if the number one piece of advice that I give to anybody who's in that situation is be honest across the board. Be honest about anything. Because if you're not, they will find out. Yeah. I don't know how, but they will find out.
Now, just a quick question, because I could see, even I'm intrigued, but I would definitely see students being intrigued. What's the relationship part on the background check piece?
So I guess they want to check and see what your credibility is, right? Like, because they want to even know like who your past landlords were and what that situation was like, and so I'm sure that they do some digging.
So not personal relationships.
No, they asked me, and they asked everybody in that background packet like any type of personal relationship that you've been in. They just want the person's name and possibly.
So they're checking with them too to see relevance of any potential anything,
any issues. So like if the relationship ended on a. Oh, I mean, and I'm sure that they understand too. Like, okay, relationships happen; it is what it is. But if we call that person and they say, "Oh no, he's threatened me" or whatever, then they're not.
Or if that person happened to be involved with some shady business, and then it may bring a red flag for you.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Just like what are like some of the questions they're asking? Like, they ask you like how did it break up?
Yeah, so it just from what I remember, it did ask like name, telephone number, and I think like reason why.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah, so I don't know if they contact them.
Yeah,
or not, but it's just they want it. So just be as honest as possible when you get to that point, regardless if it went sour or whatever the case is. It's best to just be honest.
Okay.
Okay. So then I turned in that, and there was a point in time where they wanted me to go down to the background center, and they actually conducted an interview.
Okay.
The background investigator conducted an interview with me and just kind of asked me some of the things, I guess, that they saw in there that they wanted some clarification on, and they recorded it and all that kind of stuff. Then from there, I guess they give a check yes or no, he's good to go or he's not good to go, and then they provide that information back to the department. And then from there, it was probably another all in all, it took me a year and a half to get hired.
Okay, that's usually how it works with the state and the county. So
from start to finish. So maybe a couple months after that, I got another phone call and said, okay, like, are you still interested? Absolutely, I'm still interested. Like, I've been waiting for this, for months. And then they said, okay, so we're going to have you come on down to our main office on this date, and we're going to talk about, where you're going to be assigned to and all that kind of stuff. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I'm new to the department. I'm young. They're going to put me in juvenile. I'm going to be able to work with the kids, and I had already had experience working with kids and stuff like that. So I get down there, and also I thought that I would be working in, San Leandro, which would be a little bit closer to home for me and all this kind of stuff.
Nice commute.
Right? Yeah, so I get down to our main office in Oakland, and I sit down with our HR specialist, and she said, okay, so you're going to be working here in the Oakland office, and you're going to be working in adult supervision in the PRCS unit. I had no clue what any of that meant. All I heard was, you're going to be working with adults in Oakland. I was like, okay. But I'm not passing up this opportunity. And, that I couldn't have asked for a better assignment at that point. Anyways, like that was just a blessing in disguise for me. Let
me backtrack a little bit, because I want to know how you said that year and a half time going through the background check, doing the interview. How were you feeling? If you can recall, like, your feelings going through that whole process, because that has to be pretty strenuous, and I can understand some people may be getting discouraged in that or feeling like it's too much. How were you feeling along that process?
So I definitely, at some points, I felt discouraged, because I felt like I'm not, like, why there must be something wrong. Like, they're not going to hire me. Why is it taking so long and all this kind of stuff. So there was discouragement, but every time I got an email and then I would complete that step, I would say, okay, I'm one step closer. Okay. So I was very anxious.
Yeah.
But at one point I can remember being on the phone with somebody and just saying, like, hey, I don't think this is going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, I need to figure out, what I'm going to do and this and that. And then, like, the next day I got the phone call. So it's just crazy how things work.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Let's backtrack. There was actually 2 oral interviews. I forgot. The one that I described with the big long table, that was the second one.
Okay.
The first one was it was in Oakland as well, and that was right after the test. I had my first interview, and when I walked in to that interview, it was a 2-panel interview, and it was a trip, because when I walked in, the person who I was trying to sell the safe to at the locksmith office was on my interview panel, and that happened to be Sharon Lee, who was on the last podcast that you recorded. So I was like, when I was doing that interview, I was like, oh, hopefully she remembers me. Like, I'm trying to say, hey, this is me, you know? So I'm sorry about that. So test to the first interview, and then once I passed the first interview, then I went to that second interview with the big long table, and the top dogs in the department were there. So the feelings that I was feeling throughout the whole process, it just varied. It was like a roller coaster. Like, at one point I would be super optimistic, like, it's going down, like I'm in the next step in the process and all that kind of stuff. And then when it would drag out, I would feel pretty discouraged.
Yeah, no, and I know that feeling, because similar to that, I used to work for the state. I used to work for Napa State Hospital. Oh, yeah. And I remember applying for that job. I didn't hear anything back for a year and a half. Like, even after taking the test, and then it was just like, I was like, okay, just get a regular job. That didn't happen. And then, like you said, all of a sudden, boom, here it goes. So so now you're in. Now you're, like, working with adult population in Oakland. And
yeah, so my first day, the first thing that you do, they put you through like an orientation with HR. They give you your badge. You get sworn in. You sign all the paperwork that you need to and everything like that. So while I'm in the process of that, somebody walks past, and the HR specialist was like, hey, this is your supervisor. And then told my supervisor at the time, hey, this is your new staff. And he was like, hey, how's it going? You got a pen? Write down my number. Come find me when you're done. And I was like, I'm super overwhelmed. I didn't even have a pen on my first day.
Wow.
Like, I'm, juggling all this paperwork.
Yeah.
And finally, so I ended up getting a pen, wrote down his number. And then while I was still doing the orientation piece, there was another person who started on the same exact day as me, but he wasn't new to the department. He got transferred into that unit.
Oh, okay.
So they sent him up to come get me. And he's like, hey, are you the new guy? I was like, yeah. They're like, hey, follow me. They told me to come get you and show you around. So he showed me around and took me back downstairs to where our supervisor's office was. And then I got a proper introduction to him. Because at first I was like, oh, man, this is my supervisor? Like, he's kind of mean.
It's going to be rough.
Yeah, it's going to be rough. But he ended up being one of the best supervisors and role models that I could have had, especially coming into the department. So that was a really good experience. So later on in my first day, so that was the first half of the day. Then I came back from lunch. And the unit that I'm currently in is, and that I've been in since I've started, is the PRCS unit, which we supervise people who are getting out of state prison. So in 2011, there was Assembly Bill 109 that passed for basically the realignment of and redistribution of the state prison population, right? So they're trying to reduce their numbers. They took cases away from parole. So traditionally, when anybody got out of prison for anything, they would be supervised by parole. Well, this changed it up to where now probation's in the mix, and probation supervises non-violent, non-serious, and non-serious sex offenses for that specific. So if somebody goes to prison for a burglary or being a felon in possession of a firearm, that's considered a nonviolent offense. So they would go to prison, and then they would come out and be supervised by the probation department on PRCS. And PRCS stands for Post-Release Community Supervision. And so after lunch, I come back, and our unit, as you can imagine, is very active because we have a very active population. So one of my coworkers was like, hey, new guy, can I use your office to make an arrest? And I'm like, okay. And I'm wearing a suit, right? So so the position that I'm in is like a field deputy position. So a lot of them are dressed in, field attire. So like cargo pants and, those types of things. And my first day, I'm in a suit. I look like I'm a somebody, right? So they bring the client back and place them in the handcuffs and search them and do the whole thing in my office, and then they sit them down, and they're like, hey, new guy, stand over there in the corner. So I'm like standing in the corner, just watching, and the client that they were arresting, he just like zeroes in on me, and he starts saying like, oh, probation isn't, nothing. You guys aren't doing anything for me, and blah, 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 blah. He starts like saying all this stuff. And I'm like deers in, deer in the headlight. I'm like, oh man, like I felt, really bad. And like he was, saying all these horrible things about how probation isn't helping anybody and all this kind of stuff. Well, I went home that night, and at the time I was renting a room at my grandma's house, and I told her, I was like, I don't know, Grandma. Was like, this is what that guy said. Like, he must be right, And I was like, I don't know if this is the right field for me or whatever. And then so I came back to work the next day, and I actually asked my coworker who made the arrest, like, hey, like, the guy said these types of things, whatever. And he was like, oh. He was like, don't worry. We don't take people to jail for no reason. And then he's like, this is what happened. So the individual who they arrested was he went to prison for domestic violence and stalking. And the night before, he was outside of his victim's home at like 2:00 in the morning, and he has to stay away from her. And he's on GPS monitors, so they knew that he was out there. So they had to take immediate action because last time he almost killed her, and that's what sent him to prison. So they had to take immediate action. He was like, this is why we did that. Like, that's for the safety of the community. And so, like, you have to understand, yes, number one, our job is to provide services to our clients, but it's also on the behalf of the people of the county, so that we can, have a safe community, and support, people who want the support them and coming back into the community, and people who want to continue to create havoc in the community and make it unsafe, to provide safety to the regular people, like you and I, who aren't trying to create havoc. So once he said that and things started clicking, I was like, oh, okay, I feel better about that.
That's a rough first day.
Yeah, that was my first day. So, and then, since then, I've I've really just fell in love with the career. I love what I do.
Yeah.
I love working with the clients. I love partnering with all types of agencies. So some of the cool stuff that I've been able to do is I've partnered with like social services on a bunch of different cases, like working hand in hand with them to provide a client like the supportive services that they need to make sure that when they get out of custody, they have the smoothest transition as possible back into the community to make them feel regular, because you can imagine somebody who's been in prison coming out, people are going to look at them funny. They're not going to have the same types of opportunities as other people.
This is a culture shock.
Yeah, it's a huge culture shock. And so, working with social services, working with our community-based organizations. So we have like services that provide employment, like right off the bat. Boom, you just got out. Cool, I got a job for you. Come tomorrow. We have educational services that will actually meet the client wherever their needs are at. So like if somebody has a 5th grade education, they'll meet you at that 5th grade education level and work with you up, not only to get your GED or high school diploma, but also to get you into college setting through like Open Gate.
Oh, that's cool.
And things like that. And then we also have like housing. So a lot of the challenges that our clients face is housing. So we have transitional housing, we have homeless shelters, we have housing programs to where if you have employment and you have income coming in, we can help you with a deposit in the first couple of months rent to get you back on your feet. So it's awesome.
Yeah, that sounds like great services.
Yeah, so doing that collaboration and then also being able to collaborate with law enforcement agencies. So like I've worked with the U.S. Marshals, the FBI, the Oakland Police Department, all of our local police departments, the sheriffs, and all that kind of stuff. So it's really an exciting career.
Yeah.
And one thing that's beautiful about probation that really sets us apart from other kind of like law enforcement agencies is that if you're thinking about a career in law enforcement, but you're not quite sure if you want to be a police officer. Because you might not want to be, pulling people over, writing tickets, doing crazy, drug bust or whatever, if that's not for you, well, that's okay. You can still work in the criminal justice industry through probation, because we have positions where you're a court officer and you dress up in a suit every day and you represent our department in court. We have positions where you write pre-sentencing reports. So you might do an interview with somebody who's currently in custody and get, their social, stat information and write up this big report to provide to the judge who uses that in addition to, the case to decide whether or not that person, what the punishment's going to be for that person. And then you have field deputies who are out in the field. So if you enjoy being out in the field and, doing compliance checks at people's homes or going out to community-based organizations and checking on your clients and going to services and all that kind of stuff, then, you can do that. If you want to work with law enforcement agencies, you can do that kind of stuff too. So I love, being in this field. And I think that, being able to talk to students to let them know what probation is all about is awesome, because I feel like not a lot of people know what probation does other than what they see on TV.
Yeah.
So
CSI and all that stuff and everything. So that's really great to hear, like everything. The one question like that's really kicking in my head is, now that you've been in the field about 5 years now, what do you think it is that Sharon saw in you at the locksmith place that maybe placed in her vision, or has she told you like maybe what she saw in you to go into this field, a field that you were never thinking of?
Well, from the conversations that I've had with her, she just said that she saw something in me that was extremely positive, and I guess she felt my energy was good, and honestly, I'm not sure exactly, but maybe she saw that, I'm passionate about everything that I do.
Yeah.
Anytime I get involved in anything, I'm going to be passionate about it. I'm going to give 100%. And that was the case at the locksmith shop. Like, I was passionate about, providing her the information and trying to sell her that safe. And maybe she just saw that, like, oh, this person has a spark, like something about them. And I think maybe that's what she saw.
Oh, okay. What have been some of the challenging things for you in this role that you've had to face?
So resistance
Okay.
by clients is definitely a challenge, and that's where having those conflict resolution skills, those communication skills, and being able to work out issues professionally with somebody come into play. But sometimes that's a struggle.
Yeah.
Trying to get both sides to play. And to go along with the program, because we create case plans for our clients, and we try to get them to go along with the case plan.
Yeah.
Sometimes like drug use and things like that, those just suck people back into old habits. So trying to redirect that, or any resistance is probably the hardest thing about what we do. And then definitely like the climate. Sometimes being in law enforcement, although we're probation officers, a lot of people don't know exactly what probation officers do.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times people think, oh, probation's, coming to the house or whatever, somebody's going to jail. That's not necessarily true. Like, I'm coming here to help you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm coming here to provide you with services. So I think that a challenge is just being able to have the community know, because the clients know what we're there for, but the community members sometimes don't.
Okay.
They think that we're there messing with people, harassing people, just like they do with the police, but that's not the case at all. And even with the police, that's normally not the case. Like, we're here to make people's transitions smoother, and we're here to make sure that the safety of the community is intact.
Oh, okay.
So
you would say the biggest myth around probation is the misconception that you're just locking people up and keeping people in probation forever.
Yeah, that's a huge misconception, because that's not the case at all. We are 100% dedicated to providing services to people who need it and who actually want it.
Yeah.
You're always going to have people who aren't ready to make that change in their lives. And unfortunately, those are the people that are going to be on probation for long periods of time and things like that. But I've had multiple success stories where I've had clients who actually get out of prison, and I get them connected with housing services. Because I had a guy, he was probably 29 years old. He gets out of prison. He was doing fraud, and that's what we went to prison for. He gets out of prison. He's homeless. He has no job. He doesn't know what he's going to do. So first day, boom, I got a housing, connection for you to make sure that you don't have to worry about where you're going to sleep tonight.
Yeah.
And then I got him into a job readiness program, which worked on his resume, and did some other kind of like soft skill building and things like that. And maybe at the 8-month mark, he ended up getting. I helped him get a job with the county.
Okay.
He's a specialist clerk at social services, so he actually worked at the same building that our administration works at on Jackson Street, and then he also was able to take part of that program that I mentioned before, where our housing program helped him find a spot, and they paid for his deposit. And first and last, and then they helped with like 30% of his rent for 6 months. So he did amazing, and he still does amazing. He still calls me from time to time, because our county phones, I'm sure, like here, like if your neighbor next door calls you, they call you from a tie line. He'll call me from his tie line. Just he's off of probation. He got off in a year. And he calls me, hey, Eaglin, I wanted to check in on. I'm still here. I'm still doing good, and all this kind of stuff. So there's many success stories. But there are, like I said, the ones that aren't ready to change maybe right now, or who are caught up in addiction or just their environment.
Yeah.
And so those are the ones that we really try to focus our attention on, and try and provide them with the extra wraparound kind of services to get them back on track.
Okay. What would you say is what have you learned about yourself through this process of working in probation now, and in just the process of life? What are some of the things that you really learned about yourself that maybe you didn't know before?
That's a good question. I think definitely my patience. I felt like I was a patient. I felt like I was a patient person before, but now I've really learned what patience means.
Okay.
Especially dealing with that resistance that we talked about. And just giving second, third, fourth fifth chances to people and being, unbiased and I'm actually putting to work my degree every day.
Okay.
And that's something that, I love, and that's something that a lot of my peers, when I talk to them and the jobs that they ended up getting after college, is like, I work at this job and I just had that piece of paper just to qualify for this job, but it has nothing to do with what we learned in school. But me, I get to use that every single day. And so I think that that's something that I'm really happy about, and that I've learned about myself. Like, oh, okay, I did actually learn something in college, and I'm using those skills that I learned. So so that's what I would say. That's how I would answer that question.
And then, so any advice for students in their professional development that you would give them as they get ready to make their transition into the working world full time, or how they can develop their skills while they're still in school? Any advice for that?
Yeah, so I would definitely say something that helped me is, I'm sure that they offer this course here too, is I took an interviewing course, like a professional interviewing course, and that really helped me in learning what the STAR method was, going through, sample questions, because there's only so many questions that can be asked in interviews, and they're probably going to be similar no matter what, path you decide to go, whether it's law enforcement or whether it's, in business.
Yeah.
So I would say build those skills. And I would also say step outside of the box. If you feel like you never thought, like me, I never thought that I'd be working in law enforcement. And this has been one of the best decisions I've made in my life, right? Choosing this career path. So if you see something and you're kind of interested in it, but you don't know if you qualify, or you don't know if it's for you, but you're interested in it, try it. Give it a shot. The worst that could happen is they say no, or they offer it to you and you decline. But at least, you put yourself out there and show that interest. And so, I think that those are my pieces of advice. And if you are interested in actually becoming a probation officer, or trying to see what probation does, or any kind of agency, they also have checked for volunteering, because we have volunteers,
VIPs.
We have volunteers in probation that come in, and they actually, will sit there with us, and we'll show them, what we do. They're there to witness things that, we do. They witness our conversations with our clients. They see our processes and things like that. They work with not just the adult side. They work with the juvenile side. They work in the juvenile halls as volunteers in probation. So that's something to really look into. And then we also have like an internship program too. So if you need internship credits for your your upper level courses, look into that. And then let's see what else. So those are probably the main two things. Get involved. The VIP program is a great program.
Okay. All right. Well, Justin, at this point in time, I like to ask these three, not fire questions. I still haven't come up with the topic of what these are called, but it's just the power of three is what I'm calling it right now. So just three questions, just answer it to the best of your ability. It's not like rapid fire, so don't feel like you have to rush. But most challenging position you have ever had?
So the most challenging position that I've ever had, I have two.
Okay.
So the first one is the current position that I'm in right now. So I did say that I worked in the AB 109 unit, in the PRCS unit, but I have a specialized position within that unit. It's called Redirecting the Pathways Home. So it's a grant-funded position, and I get the 7 highest risk clients that are getting out of prison per month, and I keep them for 6 months, and I do intensive supervision. So I'm extremely, extremely busy. I'm driving people, I'm transporting people, picking people up from prison that don't have a ride, taking them back to their homes, being a part of that introduction back into the communities. I'm taking people to the DMVs to make sure that they get all their documentation support. And I'm just providing maximum supervision and help that I can for the first 6 months of their supervision. And so it's a challenge because I do have the highest risk of recidivism clients, and I have like high risk gang, high risk violence clients. So just trying to work with them to change that mindset and try and be an impact in their life. So that's one. The second one is I'm also a department trainer, and I train in 5 different areas. I train in our case management system, our risk assessment tool. I'm a firearms instructor. I'm a defensive tactics instructor, and I'm a radio instructor. We just rolled out our firearms blocks, and we're arming our adult field services. So I was I was a new firearms instructor to the department. And I was a part of that whole implementation and rollout of the firearms program to our adult, field services. So that was a challenge because it was extremely busy, and it was a challenge in a way, and it was extremely rewarding as well. But it was just a challenge to try and get everybody trained to the
standard,
and the standard that we needed. So those are the 2 challenging positions that I've had, and I've overcome both of them. So it's awesome. Yeah, and it's great.
All right. So the next one. So your favorite show or movie about a workplace?
Okay, I like Mindhunters on Netflix.
Okay.
That's about the FBI program when they interviewed serial killers. And so I think, and Workplace, FBI, I really like that show. I think it was season 3 came out. Just recently, season 2 or season 3. I just watched it. It's super good. So Netflix, I love watching Netflix stuff. But that's my favorite workplace kind of show.
Okay. And then when I was 21, I was
a college student driving a 1991 Buick Riviera, working at a locksmith shop, trying to figure out what I was gonna do. What my 5-year plan looked like. That's where I was at when I was 21, driving up that hill, getting up to Cal State East Bay.
It's a lot. And so I'm gonna add one more additional question, just because I should have asked it earlier. But in this very demanding field of what you do, and the high stress and the high just what comes with everything, how do you take care of yourself? What do you do for self-care?
So for self-care, hobbies. So I love to work out. I actually converted my garage into a home gym. So I get my workout in. I have 2 dogs. So I love just going on hikes with my dogs, going on bike rides, stuff like that, going fishing. Just any kind of like hobby or anything that for self-care for anybody, anything that makes you happy. That's what I do. I love going to car shows. I go to the drag races every year up in Sonoma. So I have different, and then, hanging out with family and cooking and all that kind of stuff. So I got hobbies.
Okay, good.
I definitely got hobbies.
That's good. No, you scared me a little bit talking about the Netflix show. I was like, oh God, he doesn't turn it off.
No, I turn it on. I turn it on and off, but it's a super interesting show. You should watch it. It's good.
I'll add it to the list. Yeah. So, again, Justin, thank you for your time, for your knowledge, and for all the great work that you do. Anything you talked about the internship, you talked about the VIP volunteer programming, anything else that you want to let students know about probation and with Alameda County that you could promote? And then also, if somebody listens to this and interested and would like to reach out to you and maybe contact, how could they possibly do that as well? Yeah,
so my contact info, if you want to send me an email, if you have any questions or anything like that, it's JEAGLIN at acgov.org. So that's jeaglin at acgov.org. Or my office number is 510-268-7689. I would love to answer any questions that you guys might have about the field or point you in the right direction if you want information on how to get involved in the VIP program. We also, if you are interested and you're not quite at the point of getting a degree and you're interested in a career in probation or at our juvenile hall requirements to get hired, you don't need a bachelor's degree. So to become a probation officer, you need that bachelor's degree.
Yeah.
But a lot of people start in our juvenile hall while they're going to college, and then they transition out once they get their degree and a job opening opens up. And as a probation officer, they'll take the test and they'll transition out of the juvenile hall into a probation officer position, or they end up loving working at the juvenile hall and they stay there. But I believe that the requirements for juvenile institutional officer are, I think, 60 credits, 60 units of schooling. So that's what your GE. And then once you obtain that, then you can apply for that position and get hired. And it's a sworn position as well. And it's working at our juvenile hall in San Leandro. So it's definitely a good start too. Like if you qualify, why not apply for that job? And apply to be a VIP, and you might end up getting that job, and you don't have to worry about being a volunteer in probation because you will be working in probation. So contact me if you have any questions, and I welcome it. And good luck to all you guys in your careers, whatever you decide to do.
All right. Again, thank you, Justin.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
And that's a wrap for this week's Career Center Spotlight. Hope you got some insightful information from this and some knowledge that you can use presently and in the future. So make sure you leave a comment on this on our page, and let us know what you thought. Great topic that this could be brought up in class and you can share with your professor, with your friends, and again, help you push forward and continue to know what's happening out there in the field. Although you're right here, right now, and going through the educational process, but there's always great opportunities out there for you. So have a great day. Good luck on all those assignments, tests, and quizzes. And until next time, Career Center is here for you. Out.